Hi, I'm Paul.
And I'm Ming.
And welcome to Skip the Rulebook, the show that wades through the infested waters of the rulebook to the spotless, shiny utopia of your new game.
Today we're infecting the world in Plague Inc. In this game you go head to head with your fellow deadly diseases to see who will be the first to wipe out the last traces of humanity.
But are you merely a sniffle or the next great plague? Let's skip the rulebook. Won't need this. The first thing you'll find in the box is the world board on which humanity will take its last stand. Next, you'll find the double-sided evolution slides. The DNA point markers are used to keep track of your progress during the game. The plague tokens, finally, are used to spread your deadly tendrils across the world.
You'll also find 3 different sets of cards. The country cards, the event cards, and the trait cards. There's also a handy card mat to keep things organised during the game.
Finally, we have the blood-stained death die and the endgame bonus card that will help you decide who is the deadliest at the end of the game.
Start by placing the world board in the middle of the table. Along with the card mat. Each player should then be given an evolution slide with the bacteria side facing upwards. They should also be given their matching coloured DNA point marker and plague tokens.
Shuffle the trait cards and then deal 5 cards to each player. The remaining trait cards should then be placed face down on the card mat on the matching graphic. Then shuffle the event cards and place them next to them. In the countries deck, you should separate out the starting countries. These are identified by a red circle on the back. These should be shuffled and then 1 card dealt to each player.
Thank you.
The remaining cards should then be shuffled back into the rest of the countries.
The number of country cards included in the final deck depends on the number of players in the game. For a 2-player game we need 24 cards. Count out the right number of cards for your game and place these face down on the card mat. Then turn the top 3 over. The rest of the country cards will not be used during this game.
Each country card identifies on it which continent it belongs to. Place your starting country on the matching continent zone. Place one of your plague tokens in one of the cities, the black hexes, within that country. In Plague Inc., the starting player is the player that most recently washed their hands. Play then proceeds in a clockwise fashion. The starting player should place their DNA point marker on the 0 space on the DNA points track. Each additional player will then begin with 1 more DNA point, so I will start with 1. We're now ready to begin play.
The aim of the game is to score the most DNA points. Each turn is split into 5 phases: DNA, country, evolution, infection, and death. These are summarised down the side of your evolution slide. Phase 1 is DNA. You score 1 DNA point for each country that you control. In order to control a country, you must have the most number of tokens in it. If more than 1 player has the same number of tokens in a country, all players with the most number of tokens are counted as having control. At the moment, I currently only have control over Argentina, so I score 1 DNA point. However, your evolution slide has some special innate abilities on it. One of these is the bonus DNA ability, which allows me to score 1 extra DNA point, so I score a total of 2. Phase 2 is country. You can choose to take one of the 3 face-up cards or one off the top of the deck. You then either choose to place it on the board or you can discard it. If you discard it, you also have to discard your hand of trait cards. which is handy if you don't like your current hand or simply are running low. I'm going to choose to take Panama and place it in North America. I then replenish the face-up cards. Phase 3 is evolution. In this phase, you can use DNA points to evolve new traits in addition to your existing core traits. These will be helpful for making your disease spread faster or being able to infect hostile climates. The DNA cost is indicated in the top left of the trait cards. You simply pay this cost by moving your DNA points marker back by this amount and placing the trait card in one of the evolution spaces on your board. Obviously, you can only evolve a trait if you have the DNA points to pay for it. I'm going to evolve water transmission. I pay the DNA cost, which is 2, and place it on my slide. You can only evolve one trait per turn. Phase 4 is infection. Count up your infectivity by looking at your evolution slide and counting up the number of infectivity symbols that you have. Currently, I have 2, which means I get to place 2 tokens into cities this turn. However, there are 2 requirements that must be fulfilled in order to spread your disease. Firstly, you must be able to survive the climate in the country that you are spreading to, and secondly, you must be connected. The climate can be hot, cold, or neutral, as indicated by the symbols on the card. I want to spread to Panama. There are no hot or cold symbols here, meaning Panama is a climate-neutral country. This means I don't have to be hot or cold resistant in order to spread here. As Panama is in a different continent to Argentina, I can't spread here directly. However, as both Argentina and Panama have seaports, and I've evolved the waterborne trait, this means I can spread here. I'm going to put one of my 2 tokens in Argentina and the second in Panama. The airborne trait is very similar to the waterborne trait, except it allows you to travel between countries that have airports. Phase 5 is death. In this phase, you try and kill any of your countries that you control which are fully infected, meaning that all of the city spaces are occupied by tokens. As neither of the 2 countries that I currently control are fully infected yet, my turn is now over, and play passes to Paul.
I start by adding on my DNA points. I currently only control Japan, but including my bonus DNA, I now get to add 2 to my score. Now it's the country phase. I don't really like the look of any of these cards on the board that are face up, so I'm going to choose to take one from the deck. Now this card is useful to me, so I'm going to place it on the board. If a continent is full, then you can't place a new country card there, and are forced to discard it. Next, I'm going to choose to evolve the cysts trait, which will increase my infectivity by 1. I pay the cost of 2, and then place it onto my slide. My infectivity is now 3, which means I get to place 3 tokens on the board. You are always connected to cities within the same country, and to countries within the same continent as one you've already got a token. Since Mongolia has a neutral climate, I can now place my 3 tokens here. Now it's the death phase. Since I'm in control of a country that's been fully infected, Mongolia, I must now roll the death die to see whether or not I kill it. You must roll less than or equal to your lethality in order to kill a country. My lethality is currently only 1, indicated by the single grey lethality symbol on my slide. If you're going to be rolling for more than one country during your turn, you must say the name of the country before you roll. Mongolia! Since I rolled a 1, that means Mongolia has been killed. Each player that has at least 1 token in that country will now gain 1 DNA point per token and get to draw an event card. The tokens are then returned to their players, and the country is removed from the board and kept by the controlling player. This will potentially earn me points at the end of the game.
At the start of this turn, I am in control of 2 countries, so including my bonus DNA, I move up the score track by 3. For my country phase, I'm going to take Kazakhstan and place it in Asia, remembering to replenish the deck. Then I'm going to pay 2 DNA points to evolve my seizures card, giving me +1 lethality. Next is the infection phase. My infectivity is still only 2, so I get to place 2 tokens. I'm going to place the first one in Japan using my waterborne trait. And although Kazakhstan is in the same continent, I haven't evolved the cold resistance I would need in order to survive, so I'm going to place my second one in Panama. Now I must roll to see if Panama is killed because it's fully infected. My lethality is currently 2, so a roll of 1 or 2 would kill it. As it is, Panama lives to fight another day.
I'm going to start my turn by playing an event card, DNA Flow, which gives me plus 4 DNA points. Ming and I are now both tied for control of Japan, so I still get my 1 point. Plus my 1 bonus point means I get a further 2. All of my trait cards are currently high value ones, which means I can't really afford them. So I'm now going to discard a country in order to draw 5 new ones. Now I've got more useful trait cards, I'm going to spend 4 DNA points in order to evolve cold resistance. My infectivity is still 3, so I get to place 3 more tokens. Since I'm now able to withstand the cold, I can now place 2 of those tokens in Kazakhstan, and I'm going to place the 3rd in Japan. Since none of the countries I control are fully infected, I can skip the death phase, and play passes on.
Play continues in this way until the final country card has been placed or discarded. Once this happens, the game enters sudden death mode. Once in sudden death mode, the country phase is missed out. The game can then end in one of 2 ways. Firstly, if any player does not have any tokens left on the world board, their plague has been eradicated, and the game ends when the current player has finished their turn. Alternatively, if any player cannot place tokens on the board during their turn or roll the death die, then the game ends immediately.
The final scores can then be calculated. Add the value of any evolved traits to the points scored during the game. Bonus points are then awarded. The player with the most tokens still left on the board gains a bonus 4 points. The player who's managed to kill the most countries in each continent gains a bonus 6. The player who killed the country with the most cities gets 7. In the event that more than one player is tied for a bonus, all tied players get the bonus points. The player with the most points at the end of the game wins. If there's a tie, the first player to manage to lie down on the floor and pretend to be dead is the winner. Evolved traits can be devolved and discarded at any point during your turn by removing them from your slide. It doesn't cost any DNA points to do this, but you also don't get refunded the cost of those cards, and they don't count towards your points at the end of the game. If you do devolve the hot or cold resistance traits, any tokens you've currently got in hot or cold climates stay where they are, but you can't then infect hot or cold cities in future phases, unless you use a special ability or event card. The Outbreak ability on your evolution slide allows you to skip the infection phase. If you do this, then you can move one of your tokens already on the board to any other city, ignoring normal restrictions of climate and connection. If in a future evolution phase you cover up either this ability or the bonus DNA ability with a trait card, then these abilities can no longer be used.
Event cards allow you to do additional actions. They are earned if you have tokens in a country that is killed. Each of them says on them in full when and how they can be used. You cannot use an event card in the same turn that you drew it, but allowing for this, you can use as many in your turn as you like. You can only hold a maximum of 3 event cards in your hand at any given time. If you already have 3 in your hand, you cannot draw further event cards until you've discarded some. You can choose to discard 1 event card at the start of your turn in exchange for 1 DNA point. If being a bacteria just doesn't do it for you, you can choose to play as a virus instead. Simply choose which you want to play during the setup phase and turn your evolution slide to the correct side. The phases of play are exactly the same, you just have slightly different special abilities.
That's it from us at Skip the Rulebook. If you enjoyed this video, please press like. If you want to hear more from Skip the Rulebook, hit subscribe. You can also find out more about us on Facebook, Twitter, and skiptherulebook.com.
Join us next time for your chance to jump into that brand new board game of yours without having to do any of the tedious rule reading.
See you later.
Why did the bacteria cross the road?
I don't know.
To get to the other slide. Come on, it's funny.
We've got a brand new convoy harvester. Flop, 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 flop. The plague tokens are used to
Each turn is split into 5 phases. Can't remember what they are.
If you enjoyed this video, please press like. If you want to hear more from press the rulebook. Mongolia. Mongolia. Mongolia.
It's creepy.
Mongolia.